Hello, my name is Hazel, and I'd like to tell you about my 3-day ride on a roller coaster. That was only the start of my issues. It all began when a birthday surprise went horribly wrong. It was my birthday, and I assumed my pals Ruby and Leo knew enough about me to know what I was about. Shopping, spas, and selfies are all options. I was overjoyed when they told me we were going on a surprise day out. Until we arrived, they'd taken me to a dreadful theme park. I was irritated. Did they mistake me for a child? We waited in line for over an hour to be the first to ride their new roller coaster. It was meant to be one of the world's scariest roller coasters, but I despise them. I believe they're terrifying and they ruin my hair. But I was afraid to tell them. I was already nervous, but it grew worse. We were given the front seats. My friends were overjoyed because they are the best. But that only made me more terrified. As the ride began, I felt nauseous. It was incredibly fast and had so many loops. The ride abruptly came to a halt as we went upside down on the largest circle yet. It happened so fast that the ride shook, and it hurt my head and neck badly. We were dangling upside down. Surely this wasn't part of the ride? I instantly realized it wasn't. Everyone began to yell. It was like something out of a nightmare. Why wasn't the ride restarting? I started to panic. I'd never yelled so loudly in my life. I was petrified. Ruby, to my left, was sobbing uncontrollably. On my right, I noticed Leo was asleep and bleeding from his nose. I yelled at him till his eyes opened. Everyone behind me was sobbing, yelling, and pleading for assistance. I realized there must have been around 50 individuals on this ride, and they were all trapped like us. The noises were frightening. I took out my phone and attempted to call for assistance, but there was no service. I must have dozed off for a long time because, when we awoke, I discovered that I had dropped my phone, which was crushed on the ground below. I was irritated, especially since I seldom bother with insurance. Then I saw something that scared me even more. The smoke was coming from the train we were aboard. It appeared that it would catch fire. I took a look around. There wasn't even a fire engine in sight. Then I heard yelling. I assumed it was a rescue mission, but it wasn't. It was the media. There were reporters and film teams filming and photographing us all around us. I yelled to them to aid us, but they couldn't hear me. I'm not sure how long we were upside down for, but it seemed like hours. The train then abruptly moved. It moved onward until we were at the top of a loop, gazing downward. But then the ride came to a halt. It was impossible for me to believe. Now that I was standing up, I could feel my blood pouring out of my head and back through my body. Ruby had stopped weeping, and I was furious with her. I began yelling at her, telling her how I hadn't wanted to ride the roller coaster in the first place because I was afraid something would go wrong. And I was correct. Then she became enraged and informed me that she thought going to the theme park was my idea. It was impossible for me to believe. Ruby was a total liar. I'd want to go to this awful theme park. Then Leo awoke. He had a scruffy appearance and a croaky voice. He admitted that going to the theme park was his idea. He was well aware that neither of us wanted to attend. He was even aware of my phobia of heights. So he told Ruby it was my idea, but he said it was Ruby's. Unbelievable. It didn't stop there either. I became so enraged that I admitted to Leo that I was the one who created rumors about him still peeing in his bed, which, by the way, is correct. Ruby then informed me she kissed my boyfriend in 3rd grade, which escalated our argument. I didn't want to speak with either of them again. After almost 10 hours, I heard what sounded like the helicopter above my head. When I looked up, I discovered it wasn't a helicopter, but a drone. It was transporting 3 crates. It lowered itself till it was near us, at which point I snatched the boxes. I handed one to Leo and another to Ruby without saying anything to them. Mine was opened. It contained a cheeseburger and fries. I heard Ruby getting enthusiastic and began to eat. Jan had passed out once again and dropped his on the floor, but I was unimpressed. I was on a cleanse and didn't want to eat anything bad. They could have asked what I desired. I was going to toss my box to the ground when I realized it contained something else. A ringing sound was heard. It was a mobile. I responded. It was a theme park employee. They told me that we would be rescued, but that it would take some time. The ride designer was on a Caribbean trip and wasn't returning phone calls. They had no idea how to solve the problem without consulting with him. It was becoming darker now. I told the man on the phone that he needed to get me down there soon. If not, I planned to sue. I demanded that he bring me some nutritious food and a blanket. I was starting to feel chilly. I must have dozed off because the sun was just rising when I awoke. I felt chilly, exhausted, and dizzy. I had a peek at Leo. He didn't move. He appeared to be dead. I couldn't believe the last time I spoke to him was to express my displeasure. It was not his fault that the ride had gone wrong. Then I had a horrible thought. Suddenly, I vomited all over the place. My sickness was covering the camera team who had been there for 2 days. They took shelter. As terrified as I was also relieved that it had hit them. Then I realized I was sick as well. It was disgusting, and as the sun rose higher in the sky, it began to dry and stink. I had no choice but to remove my top. It took a lot of effort, but I eventually got it off. I tossed it to the ground underneath. I was only wearing jeans and a bra, but you know what? I didn't mind. It's not like I had boobs in the first place. I had the flat chest of a boy. At the very least, I could no longer smell the sick. I got a poor night's sleep that night and was freezing. Then I heard the ringing of a phone. For a little while, I was perplexed. My phone had vanished, so where had it come from? Then I realized it was the phone in the box. I responded. A journalist had requested an interview with me regarding the disaster. They were curious if I would talk to them. I told them they could talk to me if they paid me what I demanded, and I demanded a large sum of money. He stated that he would look into it. I waited all night for him to call me back, but he never did. As if that wasn't enough, the idiot drone couldn't deliver us any more food. It appeared to be too windy for it to fly. When I awoke the next morning, I heard a huge noise. It was the sound of the roller coaster starting up again. I'd never been happier. The train resumed its journey. It flew by as it completed its journey. Finally, it brought us to a halt near the exit. I stood up as soon as the constraint was removed. I was so shaky. A paramedic rushed over to me and wrapped a blanket around me, but I was unharmed. But I didn't have time to be unhappy because my parents had already come running up to me. They were overjoyed to see me, and for once, I was overjoyed to see them. They served me a drink and food. Then I realized something. I rummaged through my pants pockets. It was not present. I had brought a roll of bills to the theme park. I had no idea the theme park would be my birthday surprise. I had planned a day of shopping and had brought all of my savings with me. They were no longer there. Then I realized they were in the pocket of the top that I had removed when it became sickly. Even though I was exhausted, I knew I had to find that money. I dashed outside and looked for my top on the floor, but it was gone. I was distraught over the money, but no one seemed to care. I was rushed to the hospital to be treated, but I was okay. I didn't mind being put on a drip to help boost my energy. Ruby was in the bed next to mine. She was not so fortunate. She required numerous injections and medicines to recover, but she was always the dramatic one. I watched the accident on the news after my parents gave me a new phone. Not only in this country, but around the world. I couldn't believe what I saw next. Pictures of me were all over the press, and they were dreadful. There was even video of me vomiting into the audience below while wearing only my jeans and bra. When I was released from the hospital, all of my friends thought it was a big joke. They didn't consider how terrifying it had been to go through all of this. They even began calling me derogatory names. Spewy, Loomy, and Flatty, despite having a flat chest. They thought they were hilarious. My parents were so upset by what transpired at the amusement park that they decided to sue. I had to come up in court and explain what had transpired. Our lawyer wanted me to express how terrified I was and how terrible it must have been to witness my friend's death. But I wanted to talk about the things that had the most impact on me. I informed them that the meal I had been given was disgusting and that I was upset that such negative images of me had been published. Later, the lawyer told me that my replies were inadequate. It didn't matter though. We still won a lot of money. $1 million. I knew exactly what I intended to do with the money. I wanted to make sure everyone understood who I was. I didn't want to be known for the viral video of a female puking on a roller coaster in front of a crowd, so I spent the money on myself. I whitened my teeth, got a breast job and butt lift, and paid for a couple of photo shoots with prominent photographers. Now that I'm a well-known influencer, my pals no longer refer to me as Spewy Louie.